Yo, this $4.9 trillion giant just dropped a new Bitcoin report making some shocking conclusions about BTC. Not only did this new report say that we're early to Bitcoin, but they also dropped some bombshells about nation state Bitcoin adoption. Today, we're going to be breaking down all the key insights from this mega 34-page report. So let's jump straight to it. But before we start the show, I want to bring up my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields, who's always optimistic. And of course, in the house today, we have Max Kai. Max Kai is the CEO of Debifi. We're going to talk about that during the culture segment. But before we do that, let's jump straight into the report. And who is this giant? Who is this $4 trillion giant? Of course, I'm talking about Fidelity. Fidelity was one of the first asset managers that got into the Bitcoin space. They've been mining Bitcoin since like 2014, 2015, I believe. And they were first to advocate for it, adopt it. And they've been in the space for a long time. But the interesting things about this report are some of the conclusions that they made. So let's get straight into it. So first up, it says, are you late to Bitcoin? This is a question that I hear all the time for so many people. They see Bitcoin at 100K. When I got into Bitcoin in 2016, I remember the first Bitcoin that I bought was like $600-$700. I was like, dude, I am so late. And the reason I felt so late is because I knew people that bought it at $100 or below $100. And I was like, dude, I missed the boat. I missed the train. Now I look back on those days and I'm like, bro, I wish I bought more Bitcoin at $1,000 or $700. Like, what was I thinking, right? So anyways, it says, in our 2024 look ahead, the Fidelity Digital Assets research team opined that investors should, quote, prepare for acceleration with increased adoption, development, interest in, and demand for digital assets. However, no one could fully predict what 2024 would bring. The digital assets market experienced two significant waves of acceleration in the first half of the year with the approval of the ETFs, followed by a post-election surge at the end of 2024, right? We call that the Trump pump here at Simply Bitcoin. Anyways, moving on to page 27. The possible drivers of mainstream adoption and diffusion in 2025. Nation state and government adoption. The approval and launch of spot Bitcoin ETFs earlier in 2024 led to substantial demand for exposure to Bitcoin from institutional and retail investors alike. This regulated, familiar, and accessible vehicle has made allocating to Bitcoin more streamlined than ever before, leading to several pensions and at least one endowment making allocations to Bitcoin through these products. While we expect to see this trend accelerate through 2025, one might wonder who the next significant investor might be to add Bitcoin to their portfolios. Enter nation states and governments. The largest government hodlers of Bitcoin currently are the US, China, United Kingdom, Ukraine, Bhutan, and El Salvador. And it has the breakdown here. The United States currently holds 198,000 Bitcoin. Donald Trump promised during the Nashville keynote that he had that the United States, while he's in charge, is not going to be selling any more of that Bitcoin. China's in second place with 190,000 Bitcoin. The United Kingdom has 61,000 Bitcoin. Ukraine has 46,000 Bitcoin. Bhutan has 11,688 Bitcoin. What's really interesting to me about Bhutan is that Bhutan never got any of this Bitcoin in a coercive manner. This isn't Bitcoin that they just seized. This is Bitcoin that they've actually mined using their abundant energy resources. They have a tremendous amount of hydroelectric power. It's a small country in the Himalayas. And I believe the last time I checked, they're holding so much Bitcoin, it's like 1/3 of their GDP. It's like they're balls deep, like straight up. It goes on to say El Salvador, 5,961 Bitcoin, of course, the Bitcoin country. It goes on to say, however, despite holding Bitcoin, many countries with exposure have only gained that exposure through government seizures and recoveries of Bitcoin associated with entities using it for illicit financing purposes, not necessarily because they want to establish a strategic and long-term position holding the asset, except for Bhutan and El Salvador. It goes on to say, further, some of these governments, such as the US, have certain requirements relative to the handling and auctioning of this Bitcoin and cannot count them as part of their treasury. We expect 2025 to be the year this changes for both acceptance and adoption. This is to say, we anticipate more nation states, central banks, sovereign wealth funds, and government treasuries will look to establish strategic positions in Bitcoin. Perhaps these establishments will take notice of the playbook employed by Bhutan and El Salvador and the substantial returns they have been able to glean from such positions in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, we all remember Germany selling Bitcoin at like $50,000 or $60,000. It was like they sold 50,000 Bitcoin. The definition of wrecked. It goes on to say, facing challenges such as debilitating inflation, currency debasement, increasing crushing fiscal deficits, not making any Bitcoin allocation could become more of a risk to nations than making one. While President-elect Donald Trump and Senator Cynthia Lummis have been both vocal about their support of and plans for establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve in the US, it remains to be seen if they follow through with this ambition in 2025. Currently, the poly market odds have it at 40%. So, I mean, the odds aren't, no, it's what I was telling you guys yesterday, last year, actually, in 2024. I said there's a non-zero chance that we'll have a pro-Bitcoin president in the White House in 2025. And that seems like it came to fruition. It goes on to say, Senator Lummis introduced the Bitcoin Act of 2024 to the Senate in July of 2024. If the bill's enacted, we believe the political and financial game theory at play will force other nations to follow suit. However, if this strategy were to be adopted, it is likely that nation states will begin accumulating in secret. This is because no nation has an incentive to announce these plans, as doing so could influence more buyers and drive up the price. That's right. If you're selling Bitcoin right now, you're more than likely selling it to a nation state or Larry Fink. Don't put yourself in that position. Anyways, skipping to page 32, conclusion. Not too late to Bitcoin, not too late, and hopefully early to a new era. Reviewing the 2025 outlook, it is clear that investors are not too late to join the digital asset movement. In fact, we believe we may be entering the dawn of a new era for digital assets, one poised to span multiple years, if not decades. This era could see digital assets permeating various sectors, industries, technologies, fields, balance sheets, and even nation states. The pivotal question for investors now is not whether to participate, but how actively they want to engage with this transformation. And again, the big deal about this report is it's coming from a very well-established and very well-respected financial institution. Fidelity has $4.9 trillion assets under management. This isn't just someone on Bitcoin Twitter writing a report or writing a Substack post. This is legit, and they sent this to their investors. And I completely agree. I think we entered a new era in Bitcoin's history, which is a little bit bittersweet from someone, class of 2016. Max, I know that you came from an earlier class. We came from the era of it was the Wild West, right? But since the approval of the ETF in January of 2024, TradFi is here. The institutions are here. When Michael Saylor started accumulating as much Bitcoin as he did, again, now public companies are here. When El Salvador said we're going to adopt a national strategic Bitcoin reserve strategy, now nation states are here. Now, as someone who wants to fix the money, fix the world, as someone who wants to end the tyranny of central banking, I just want to emphasize this. Guys, nation state adoption is great for the price, but it's not going to change anything. What changes things is individuals holding Bitcoin in self-custody. And if enough individuals do that, that is what is actually going to fundamentally change the world. That being said, this is still pretty positive for the price, because the first country that uses their unlimited money printer to just print money and buy Bitcoin, that's going to make the price go up inevitably. But I love how the report basically said these nation states are not going to say anything. They're not incentivized to say anything, because as soon as it goes on the Wall Street Journal front page, United States to buy $300 billion worth of Bitcoin. Like, it's going to be insane. And I've been saying this for a couple weeks now. If we do get a strategic Bitcoin reserve this year, we don't know what Trump's going to do. We don't know what the political situation in Washington is going to be. I would not be surprised if we saw $500,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year. Because again, like, you get the ultimate last stamp of approval. We got that stamp of approval when Larry Fink and BlackRock put their brand and their company behind it and said, you know what? Bitcoin isn't an index for money laundering. Actually, Bitcoin is a great non-sovereign alternative, right? They changed the wording completely. Now, could you imagine the United States government saying, you know what? This thing actually, it's equivalent to gold. We're going to hold some too. All the other countries around the world, doesn't matter. You're going to have to buy Bitcoin, because if not, you might get left behind. So I think an absolutely bullish report. Doesn't surprise me at all. The signal is who it's coming from and the institution it's coming from and the things that they're saying, things that we've been saying for a couple of months now. So I think 2025 is going to be an incredible year. 2024 was a historic year in Bitcoin's history. I think 2025 is going to top that. And we're only 8 days in and 12 days from the inauguration of the first pro-Bitcoin president, which I'm really excited for. Max, you've been here for quite a while. You've been in this industry for quite a while. Boy, have we grown up. Bitcoin is becoming a teenage, it's getting out of the teenager years. It's coming into the adulthood. Things have changed. The cyberpunk, remember the early days, it was like difficult to buy a hardware wallet, to take self-custody. Everything was clunky. We've come such a long way. So many things have changed. And I do agree. I think it is a bit of a new era for Bitcoin when TradFi is coming in. So for all the plebs that are listening right now, if you're selling your Bitcoin, you're probably selling your Bitcoin to a government or you're probably selling your Bitcoin to Larry Fink. Do not do that. That's a bad idea. Max, what are your takes?
Never sell your Bitcoin, of course. I mean, that's what I've been trying to achieve, and that's why we are building what we're building and doing what we're doing. But again, my take on that is do not sell your Bitcoin. If you need the cash, borrow against that. And as you said, I still miss good old days, cyberpunk spirit and all that stuff. And hopefully it's not going to fade away. But we are like in another cycle, and it's only logical. I mean, it's evolution, and institutions are coming, and hopefully after the institutions there will be wider mass adoption of Bitcoin, because there's still a lot of people who doesn't understand, who doesn't get it, and there's still a lot of people who are saying we're too late. I mean, look at the price, we're too late, and it's not true. Nevertheless, I mean, my take, I'm a hardcore believer in Bitcoin, and do not sell, stack. I'll quote the Matt, stack sats and stay humble.
Yeah, I think it's stack sats, stay humble, and I'll add the Vikingo line in there, stay solvent, which is as important too, right?
Yeah. I will add in keep building. I mean, you need to keep building always, whether it's a bear market, bull market, whatever. These things just happen, and never. Everyone is building something, and I mean, we are building products. You are building informational products, educational content, even. Any single Bitcoiner who's not doing anything particular in the space can build a network of individuals around himself and promote Bitcoin and, educate and do some stuff.
Absolutely. 100%. Keep building, contribute, contribute. That's what you got to do. You got to contribute to the Bitcoin ecosystem. Anyways, Opti, also, I want to give a shout out to almost 1,200 of you guys watching live between all the platforms. We're about to break 400 live viewers on YouTube alone. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 100 likes on YouTube in the first 25 minutes of the show. So if you guys are enjoying the show, the live stream so far, smash that like button. Opti, what's your take on this bombshell Fidelity report? I mean, dude, we just keep winning, bro. This 2025 is the year of Bitcoin winning and us winning. Feels good. What's your take?
Yeah, well, first of all, I need to shout out Rob EV in the chat. He said that this is a recording. Apparently, we're AI, Nico, and this is not live, and we're not doing this show live. So, I just want to put that caveat out there that this is actually live, guys. We're doing this live. Anyways, one thing you did say, Nico, and it just kind of struck me. This is what, Bitcoin's 16th year now, right? So it feels like 2025 is going to be like a sweet 16 year. We're going to have like a big old bash. The price is going to go up. Everything's going to be gravy. So I don't know. That's totally off topic. So this report here from Fidelity, I said it earlier when we were kind of crafting the show and we were reading through this report. And you kind of mentioned earlier, like this isn't just, random Bitcoiners on Twitter with a Substack or, a Twitter account. And this is the suits doing their due diligence and writing these reports. And while we were reading this, I was just sitting there like, man, I absolutely love the suits writing reports for us in Bitcoin. It makes us seem so legitimate. They're like fancy with their charts and their language. And it just makes us look so official here. Instead of just, two idiots here with sub 65 IQ talking about Bitcoin. It's like, yes, we are so vindicated when we have the suits out there writing these reports for us, or having BlackRock, Larry Fink's minions writing these reports for us. It's like, yeah, see, it's literally the bell curve. It's like, left side of the bell curve. It's like, see, hey, we're coming. Right side of the bell curve. They're writing all these fancy reports and all the midwits in the middle, like Bitcoin's going to die. And we're like, no, the highly regarded are coming and we are stacking all of this Bitcoin. And, it's our future to basically take. Anyways, there is some interesting stuff here. And forgive me, I was kind of checking out the chat. So Nico, if you already kind of hit this point of the report, so I might be rehashing some things. There was something in the beginning in this what's this part? Are you too late section, where they start talking about Bitcoin as a revolutionary technology that isn't just going to affect one industry, and they say that maybe Bitcoin could fit into this theory. And maybe we're at the point right now where we have passed this early speculative period. And I'm quoting here, accompanied by financial boom and bust, and are now possibly entering the phase of further adoption. And while we were kind of coming through reading this, yeah, maybe this is us kind of reaching here, but it sounds maybe like Fidelity is saying that we're no longer going to be seeing bear markets, that this is, it's going up forever, Laura. Like maybe we are entering a point now where we might not see these boom and bust cycles. Maybe we're just going to see kind of like this gradual climb upwards, kind of trending sideways and then going up as we see nation state adoption, as we see institutional adoption. So we are definitely entering I think a whole new paradigm, a whole new era. Like they said at the very end of this, is like, you're not late to Bitcoin. You're just early into a whole new paradigm, into a whole new transformation. And again, reading this, I just feel super bullish. And there was one metric in there that I thought was very interesting, is and I can't remember what page it was on, so I'm just kind of recalling what they said. But one of the numbers there was essentially that the majority of holders in Bitcoin, I think the numbers they said was 80% of retail are the ones holding Bitcoin. And I think that is super bullish. We are here for Bitcoin, the revolution, and having individuals hold this. Yes, of course, we love the money that institutional capital is going to flow into Bitcoin, and that's going to make number go up. But the fact that Satoshi created Bitcoin in such a way that it's distributed amongst basically all corners of the world, I think is always lost on a lot of people. That majority of holders here, and if these numbers are correct, they're estimating 80% of the Bitcoin that's held is held by individuals. And we're seeing all these conversations right now play out, especially these concerns about nation state adopting Bitcoin and the centralization of Bitcoin holders. And when you really break down the numbers, again, assuming these numbers are correct, and obviously there's a little bit of speculation here, the majority of Bitcoin is being held by individuals. So that means, hey, Larry Fink, BlackRock, US, Donald Trump, whatever, the UK, Ukraine, whoever wants to Bhutan, whoever wants to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, in reality, they're enriching individuals out there. And I think that's super bullish moving forward. And I think a lot of times in Bitcoin, we do get paranoid. And of course, and I think we should be rightfully paranoid. And there is concerns of centralizations, obviously centralizations of holdings and honeypots, etc. But people seem to forget that the majority of Bitcoin is held by individuals. And I think that's just one of the more bullish things coming out of this. And then, of course, that conclusion, like, I don't know, guys, when you hear that last conclusion paragraph, like, I feel bullish. It's like, yeah, no, we're not late to Bitcoin. We're entering a whole new era. Like, we are transforming the world. This is the digital transformation of capital. And man, it just feels so good being right. You know, it's hard to say, but no,
Vindication.
It was funny. Yeah, it was funny,
Vindication.
Nico. Me and Max were kind of laughing when you're like, yeah, man, 2025 is starting off on a strong year. We're only 8 days into it. And it's like, how much more winning can we actually take before we start losing our minds? We're not even a week into 2025, and it just feels like this year is going to be absolutely crazy. Sweet 16 year upon us. Let's go.
Let's effing go. All right, guys. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We just broke through 100 likes on YouTube, and we're at 450 live viewers on YouTube alone and 1,500 live viewers across all platforms. So again, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, smash that like button. Stay tuned because we still have so much content to cover. There's this piece or this part on Legacy Media where they're talking about Bitcoin being a very powerful political movement. I mean, at the end of the day, Bitcoiners do want the separation of money and state. Then we got news from Coinbase. We got news from El Salvador. El Salvador continues to get their ratings upgraded after the IMF deal, and they continue to stack more Bitcoin. Seems like we're winning all across the board. Very exciting stuff. But before we jump straight into all of that, I want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Simply Bitcoin is powered by Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on-chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada and the USA. To get started, you put in your email address here. Takes 2 to 5 minutes to sign up, and bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy self-custody Bitcoin. So what makes Bitcoin Well different? It's a completely non-custodial platform, which means as soon as you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well and the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. It doesn't even give you the ability to leave your money on the exchange, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state, because self-custody is the revolution. Also, if you're a higher net worth individual and you're trying to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC. And again, this is a white glove service for people who are trying to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more. So if you're tired of dealing with UI and you want to deal with a human being every time you want to buy or sell Bitcoin, you want to have a personal representative of which you can call, you can text, you got to check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. Go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC to get started. And every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points. And you could use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we did live for you guys right now. Holy cow. The winner has won 2,100 stacks today. That's a big prize. So guys, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well if you sign up to bitcoinwell.com today and use the promo code SimplyBTC.
Wait,
every
Nico.
time. Yes.
Go. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off the ad. I was just like, what is that? Like $20? Like, let's go.
That's $21. First person that scanned it won $21 in Bitcoin. Every time you toss a coin into the Wishing Well, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. We have tons to talk about. Let's check it out. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of
titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store.
All right, everybody, you want to maintain the relationship with your grandchildren. Eventually, you're going to pass on your generational wealth to them. And could you imagine that conversation many years from now? And they're like, Grandpapa, are you going to give me your Bitcoin? And you're like, no, because I wrote down my seed words on paper. And they're going to look at you and they're going to say, Grandpapa, why didn't you get a stamp seed? And then it's like, I don't know, I just didn't feel like doing it. Anyways, head over to stampseed.com today. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $93,800. Block height, 878,375. Sats per dollar, 1,066. Market cap, 1.86 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 10.04%. Percentage issued, 94.32%. Decline from all-time high, negative 13.3%. Realized monetary inflation, 1.09%. The grand scheme of things, we are just getting the party started. All right, everybody, moving on. So I found this clip interesting. I'm going to have this kind of the video playing in the background while I talk about it, then we'll play the clip for you guys. Because here's the thing about Bitcoin, and I think a lot of people haven't seen this yet. Bitcoin isn't just a technology. Bitcoin isn't just money. I fundamentally believe in my heart, Bitcoin is a political movement, right? And then you have to define what politics are. So politics is the organization of power. It's extremely messy. But what is the goal of Bitcoiners? Like, what do Bitcoiners want, right? We all have heard the saying, came for the money, stayed for the revolution. I'm a millennial. I got affected by the 2008 financial crisis. So did Opti. So did a lot of us in our generation. And I'm assuming Max feels very passionate about this subject too, if he's working in the industry. And we want to fix the money. That we believe that fiat money is broken. We believe that central banking is an instrument of tyranny. It's an instrument of the state to control its people. And I think that people underestimate how powerful this political movement is going to become and is becoming. And it seems like on the media, they've picked up on that. Apparently, a guest on MSNBC, the legacy media, says, if you think MAGA is a strong political movement, just wait until you see the Bitcoiners. So let's check out the clip and then we'll talk about it.
Have made.
Well, it's delivered on one important thing. It is a store of value, not too different than gold, right? So it's up 30,000% in the last 10 years. There's very few other assets on the planet have done that. Maybe NVIDIA, they're the ones that make the high-end GPUs that power generative AI. So when I think about what's going on here, it's a $2 trillion market cap. It's not going away. And if you think about why it's gone up of late is because of the promise of deregulation, the leaning in. And I'll just say this, if you think MAGA movement is a strong political movement, just wait until you see these Bitcoiners. This is like one of the strongest financial religious movements that I've ever seen as long as I've been in the business for nearly 30 years. So it's here to stay, and maybe some new regulation will kind of help. And the last thing I'll just say, Zeke, when you think about this, I know you did a lot of work on this. Some of the smartest people that I know in finance and in tech believe in this. And they believe in the technology that's underlying it.
Okay,
it doesn't mean that the government.
Okay, that's my point. Two things can be true.
Yeah.
There could be real value in it. There could be a real business there. But that doesn't mean that there needs to be a government program transferring $100 billion to it.
And when we talk about smart people being into Bitcoin, is it because they think Bitcoin is like the technology that's going to power the future? Or is it because they're smart enough to realize there are a lot of people who are going to get on the train, feel the FOMO, and buy in? I mean, if you were able to predict that, more power to you. But I don't think the government should be in that business.
Well, I mean, there's no different than people investing in stocks or other illiquid assets. There really isn't. I mean, if people believe.
Hold on a minute. Beneath that stock are companies that sell products that you can. Okay, ready? Let's give you the Hawk to a girl example, okay?
Yeah.
A drunk girl outside a bar who becomes famous for a lewd comment, more power to her, okay? She then launches a coin, is dishonest publicly about action around that coin. The value...
Wow. This is why we are the media now. They don't even know what they're connecting Hawk to a girl with Bitcoin and the meme coin with Bitcoin. No. But I really want to focus on that comment because I think that comment is spot on. And the comment was, if you think MAGA is a strong political movement, just wait until you see the Bitcoiners. I completely, fundamentally agree. And I think and I've said this before, I think Bitcoin is the strongest political movement the world has ever seen since the introduction of Marxism in the mid 19th century. It's very strong because we're not like, yes, we benefit, number go up, we get wealthier, but there's something burning inside of Bitcoiners. We want change. We want to effectuate change. It's not just enough to get wealthy. It's not just whatever. It's like, in a way, we're a little bit angry. We're a little bit pissed off because we're awake and we understand that whether you vote for Team Blue or Team Red, nothing's going to change. What we really need is the separation of money and state. And I think as Bitcoiners continue to gain more and more influence, like what just happened in the American election, which Bitcoiners essentially became part of the donor class, which is essentially who runs Washington, D.C., we're going to have more and more influence on policy, right? And I think the end goal here, let's be very clear, end the Federal Reserve, end the Fed, end central banking, because it's a mechanism that essentially has been stealing from the lower and middle classes that don't have the means to save in assets. And it's a wealth redistribution mechanism back to the very wealthy that do have the means to save in assets and back to the state, back to the government. What is that but not a political philosophy? What is that but not a political movement? Having that inside, talking about that internally, it's not just, this isn't just an investment. And I remember having this conversation with this like higher net worth individual, and I was like pitching him Bitcoin. And I was like, hey man, it's like it's a money. It's completely decentralized. There's a cap supply. It's absolute scarcity. It's not controlled by the state. It's not controlled by anyone. It's backed by the largest decentralized computing network in the world. There's literally nodes orbiting in outer space. Like, it's freaking crazy. It's unstoppable. And he just looks at me. He's like, Nico, I don't want the revolution. Just talk to me about the investment. And then that's when it hit me like, oh my God, some people see it, some people don't see it. But I think that this movement is still in its infancy. I think that in 10 years, you're going to have an army of people that see the world the way that we see it, believe the things that we see. And I think once you get 10, 15, 20% of the population awaken to the reality of the scam of central banking, they're going to have a hard time continuing that system. Because one thing is the justification of income tax, which is a very, very deep discussion. But I don't think there's a social contract for the money tax, aka inflation. I don't think society as a whole has agreed to that. They've been psyoped into thinking that somehow money has to lose purchasing power in order to function. That's bullshit. And politicians don't even try to justify it. They start to explain and try to blame other factors like the war in Ukraine, the supply chains, it's the pandemic. It's everything and everyone around them except for them printing money. That is the cause for inflation. What happens when the world wakes up and it's like, wait a second, you guys are the cause for inflation. What's going on there? And then one of the things that I always say, and I'll pass it on to Max, is the first question you're going to ask is what is money? But I think that inevitably leads to the question of what is government? And what is the role of government? What should the role of government be in society? Max, that's a very loaded question. Don't mean to ambush you, but what's your take on all this, on that conversation? Because it seems like people are catching up to the fact that Bitcoin, in fact, is a very, very powerful political movement?
I wanted to comment on that. I think it's true, but it's also true because I think the difference between Bitcoiners and all other movements is that most of Bitcoiners are into Bitcoin because they like freedom, independence, and it's just not words, not just words for most of us. And a lot of us, the second thing is that a lot of us realize that we need to separate money in the state because, as you mentioned, Fed and central banks and bad politics in terms of monetary stuff. But I think the most important thing, two things, that Bitcoiners are not just movement, people who gather around, talk about some stuff. We are also a movement of builders who are doing something, actually. And the next important factor is that we are, as Bitcoin network is decentralized, Bitcoiners across the globe are also decentralized. We're not controlled by any single, authority. There's no CEO, there's no board, there's nothing that's controlling Bitcoiners across the globe. And we all are doing, because we're passionate about freedom, we're all doing our part, and we don't coordinate with each other. I mean, we're building the stuff across the globe, and we do it on our own way. And in the end, Bitcoin doesn't care, but Bitcoiners do care sometimes too much. But I think the power of the Bitcoin as a movement is it's kind of decentralized, mostly decentralized, and it's also a movement of the builders. We're doing something. We're not just sitting there and discussing. Of course, we're discussing a lot Bitcoin as an idea and as a thing to fix all the things, but we also, I think it's kind of weird thing. Bitcoiners like to say that Bitcoin fixes everything, but in the end, it's Bitcoiners who are fixing everything. So that's a very important factor that makes us very strong.
Bars, absolute bars.
Absolutely. Opti, what's your take on this?
I really like the comment from the chat that Bitcoin is a political movement, but actually it's not about politics. We don't care about politics that much.
It's a political movement to end politics, right? It's a political movement to take the sovereign individual thesis, right? Where essentially information technologies makes politics irrelevant over the long term. So it's this political movement to end the necessity for fiat politics of which we see today, which in my opinion is a popularity contest in order to see who wins control of the money printer. That's really how I see elections and politics today, because this is essentially what it is. It doesn't matter whether you vote left or right. Either party goes in there, they just print a fuck ton of money, they devalue, they debase everyone's money. Their source of power is coming from their ability to create money. What happens when the state no longer has the ability to create money? Their only way of raising revenue is through direct taxation, which means they're actually going to have to be a little bit nice to their citizens, because if not, their citizens say, you know what, I don't feel like paying 10% more to fund this crazy effing idea, and it's not free. I have to pay for it. But with the money printer, they could promise free things, and because people are not educated about money, they believe it's free. They believe there's no cost to it, right? Opti, what's your take on all this, man? I mean, dude, we've been saying this for quite a while. It seems like the legacy media is finally starting to catch on about what our true intentions here are.
Yeah, the mask is off now, and they're freaking out about it. You just love to see it. Honestly, first, I have a few things just nitpicky, and then I'll maybe do a rant. First one is that journalist there, he's so smug, but also so wrong. It's hilarious. He's like, I don't even know what he was saying, but you just love to see these academics come out here and just continue to prove themselves to be the idiots that they are. It's like, look, bro, you can intellectualize this whole thing all you want to, stay in your pessimistic doom loop, but you could have just bought Bitcoin and been right with us and been like, yeah, I love Bitcoin. Bitcoin's great. And the second thing is, I forget when I first said this on the show. It had to have been either 2023 or at some point in 2024 that it is very important for us to separate Bitcoin from shitcoinery, considering that you see the same kind of FUD lines come around. Like the fact that the Hawk Tuah girl is like our mascot here for what Bitcoin is absolutely ridiculous, when every Bitcoiner was saying like, she's doing a rug pull. Like in real time, this is going to be a rug pull. That's what shitcoins are. It is just designed to take your Bitcoin. They're all rug pulls. And now it's like, it's really going back to like the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX moment here, where we get all caught up in all the damage that the shitcoins do and the shitcoin world does, and that gets publicized, and then we all get wrapped into that in Bitcoin. And it's really important for us to continue to kind of dunk on them and be like, no, this is not what we're doing. We are not shitcoiners. Shitcoins are designed to be rug pulls. And one more little tangent since I'm on this point. It's really fun to see what's that one shitcoin, like Pump Fun or whatever it is. I really love to see them kind of go all the way to the inevitable end of shitcoins and just literally be like very blatant about the fact that like, yes, I'm going to hurt this goldfish if you don't pump my bags, and then I'm going to rug pull you because you're an idiot. Like, I'm so glad that we've gotten to this point with shitcoins where the mask is off for them, where we all know they're just here to steal money from you. And now we can kind of what Max was saying, we can all get back to hopefully the point of what we're doing here is build something better. And, end of rants of shitcoinery and, the smug academics out here.
Can we talk a little bit about the Hawk Tuah thing is hilarious because it's like, like people are surprised she scammed her. What did you think was going to happen? Like what other outcome? It's like what's the dollar backed by? The full faith and trust of the U.S. government. Look at how bad they've shot the bed, and then you're gonna like place your money, your hard-earned money, and faith and trust. I'm not even going to comment about how she got famous, but let's just say that's not a really good logical, thought process. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, what other outcome were you expecting doing something like that? And what is this, like 2017, that like people still can't see the difference between Bitcoin and altcoins? Like, come on, man, get the memo.
Time is a circle, a flat circle. We just keep repeating the same things over and over. And I mean, anyone that joined the Hawk Tuah coin community because of I don't even remember what Haley Welch, is that what her name is like,
I think so.
They all look, might be a little harsh here, but like they deserve to lose their money. Like, what are you doing here? Anyways, I really want to.
What did you expect?
Yeah,
what did people expect the outcome was going to be? Like, what else? Like, it's so ridiculous.
All right, I do kind of want to hit on the Bitcoin as a movement, because I have been saying that for a long time. I think 2024 was kind of our I don't know. I don't want to use the framing like coming out moment, because that's like big pause here. But it is kind of us hitting the main stage. And it really goes to show that there is a lot of power here in Bitcoin as individuals, as people being outspoken around Bitcoin. And I think Bitcoin is bigger than just the MAGA movement. Obviously, we don't have like a charismatic frontman like Donald Trump to really be divisive and hit the popular stage here. But the Bitcoin movement is a global movement. And I think people seem to forget that it's like, it's not about just the US getting into Bitcoin. Obviously, US has most of the capital here, but it is it's an anti-political movement, because we all realize that the money printer is politics. Like, politics as we know it is being backed by the money printer. And now we have an alternative to that. And it's really going to take the world by storm. And the cope that we're going to see on mainstream media is only going to intensify. And I'm here for it. I can't wait to hear some more, academic mainstream journalists, co-host tears here. We're going to be so quenched throughout the year, because actually, we might be a little more thirsty for some more tears, because it's going to be very salty here. But anyways, keep it going.
Opti cracking the jokes. All right, everybody, stay tuned. We're going to hit the news segment where we have lots to talk about. We'll be right back.
I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind.
All right, everybody, this is Opti.
Oh, sorry guys, I got a mean headache.
He's playing with his eyes. He's holding the Passport by Foundation devices. No, it's not a phone. It's a hardware wallet. It makes taking self-custody of your Bitcoin extremely convenient without sacrificing security. It's a completely open source Bitcoin only hardware wallet. This is the perfect gift to give to somebody that perhaps is a little bit intimidated by self-custody. Passport makes it easy. Use promo code SIMPLY to get a small discount. Anyways, I do want to read this quote from the sovereign individual before I get to today's news. So it goes on to say, in the new millennium, cyber money controlled by private markets will supersede fiat money issued by governments. The authors have also predicted that with the rise of this new cyberspace and consequently cyber money, it will become harder for a nation state to collect taxes from its citizens. They compare the state to a farmer keeping cows in a field to be milked, but that, quote, soon the cows will have wings. They predict that for the government to collect taxes from its citizens in this type of society, it would have to violate human rights. Even traditionally civil countries will have to resort and turn nasty. Lacking their accustomed scope to tax and inflate, which, by the way, are the same thing, governments, even in traditionally civil countries, will turn nasty. Businesses that offer services that facilitate the realization of autonomy by individuals will be subject to infiltration, sabotage, and disruption. Arbitrary forfeiture of property, already commonplace in the United States, where it occurs 5,000 times a week, will become even more pervasive. Governments will violate human rights, censor the free flow of information, sabotage useful technologies, and worse, right? Sounds very, very familiar. And I had to give a little bit of context before getting to this. This is a new article on No BS Bitcoin. Coinbase user sentenced to 2 years for Bitcoin tax fraud to surrender access to $124 million Bitcoin fortune. An early Bitcoin investor and Coinbase user, Frank Richard Algren, who was sentenced to 2 years in prison last month for falsely underreported capital gains linked to $3.7 million worth of Bitcoin sales, has been ordered to hand over his private, I think they missed the word private keys, to allow U.S. officials to access his digital assets valued at approximately $124 million. Algren is an early Bitcoin investor since 2011. He reportedly acquired 1,366 BTC through Coinbase in 2015 when Bitcoin peaked at approximately $495 each, and then used some of the proceeds to purchase a home in Park City, Utah. Algren then concealed some of his profits from sales between 2017 and 2019 by providing false information to his accountant, claiming he had purchased the Bitcoins at a higher price than he actually did. He now owes the government around $1 million in restitution from the criminal case and must provide any physical devices along with any public keys, private keys, seed phrases, and passphrases to use to store the coins, ruled the U.S. District Judge Robert Pittman on Monday in federal court in Austin, Texas. prosecutors requested the judge to force Algorand to reveal the location of at least 1,287 Bitcoin he moved in 2020 via a mixing service, which are now worth 124 million after more than doubling in value last year. We will comply with the court directive, and to the extent that we have a question, we will direct it to the court. We appreciate the care that Judge Pittman has taken throughout this case, said his attorney, Dennis Kenyon. So before I add comments to this and all this, I remember the Roger Ver case, and Roger Ver is a very controversial figure in the Bitcoin community for obvious reasons. But, he gave up his citizenship, and then not too long after, he gave up his citizenship, and he was recently arrested. I believe he was in Spain, and they're trying to extradite him back, and he's facing up to 20 years in prison. Same thing. They basically claimed, he cheated on his taxes and all that stuff. And, income tax is income tax, and it is the law, whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it. But what I will say is I think this trend is going to continue. And I think it's not so much because people are breaking the law. I think it's really to set an example. And I think over time, what I think is going to happen as well is I think that people are going to start to weigh the pros and cons of living in a jurisdiction that has certain types of tax requirements, which is exactly the theory that the sovereign individual, laid out. And I think they're going to start to weigh their options and say, why should I live here if I could live in Dubai, live in Puerto Rico 6 months out of the year, take advantage of their tax program there, or live in different jurisdictions where the tax implications aren't so high. And I think what's going to happen over the long term is that's actually going to force other jurisdictions that perhaps don't have as favorable tax regulations to make adjustments. Because what's going to happen is I think you're going to see a giant brain drain, right? You see some countries in Europe already talking about exit taxes. They're complaining about how all the wealthy people from their country are just getting up and leaving and moving to Dubai. And it reminds me again from the book, The Sovereign Individual, right? Which is the way that the state sees its citizens now is like tax cattle, but the internet essentially has given them wings. Like before, you were essentially tied to a jurisdiction. You had to live in a certain place in order for your employment, in order for your family. But now in the age of the internet, what me and Opti do, I can work from anywhere around the world. I don't have to be tied to a specific location, right? And I know a lot of people have that type of setup, have this type of remote working environment. So it begs the question, if the tax laws are so unfavorable, why are you going to put up with them, right? What is the benefit to me, right? Now, does that mean that you should break the law? No. Does that mean that you should color within the lines? Absolutely. It's the law. But I think over time, as more and more people realize the sovereignty that Bitcoin gives them, the abilities that the internet gives them, I think a lot of people are going to start asking the question, am I really getting the value for the amount of money that I am paying in taxes? And if the question's no, I think you're going to start seeing more and more people give up their citizenship and move to more favorable tax jurisdictions. In the long run, I think this is what's going to happen. The theory from the sovereign individual playing out. I think this is the first inklings of these types of cases. I think they made an example of Roger Ver. I think they're making an example of this gentleman over here. Now, does this justify the fact that they broke the law? No, I'm not trying to justify that at all. The law is the law, even if it's unjust. It's a social contract. People agreed to it. There was a vote on it. But what I'm trying to say is people are going to start weighing their options. Then I think people are going to start questioning, is it worth it for me to live in this place? Is it worth it for me to live in a jurisdiction where I have to pay 60% of my income in tax? Or if I can just live over there and have to pay 10% or 20%, right? And then you start the judicial arbitrage starts to come into place. People start looking into alternative passport. I've had at least 4 or 5 friends in the last year or two that have all given up their American citizenship because of taxes, because they've wanted to move to more favorable tax jurisdictions. And again, that's a net loss for the United States because they're losing very capable entrepreneurs, very, very smart people. And, you know, the incoming president, Donald Trump, is talking about this. One of the things that he said was it actually doesn't make sense for Bitcoin to have capital gains because it's money, right? It's not like you're just selling an asset. It's not like if you go to Europe and you convert dollars to euros, you don't pay a capital gain on the euro, or if it makes a gain or whatever. It's you're converting one money to the other, right? So it's not my fault that the money that I decide to use is superior to your money. And it's funny how they get to pick and choose when Bitcoin isn't money and when Bitcoin is money and when Bitcoin is an asset, when Bitcoin isn't an asset. Like whatever is most favorable to them is what Bitcoin is. When it's unfavorable, Bitcoin isn't a money. When it is favorable, Bitcoin is money. It can't be like that. And I think over time, and this process is probably going to take decades, in my opinion, I really believe the theory from the sovereign individual is going to play out. And I think over time, the internet and Bitcoin is going to bring taxes down all around the world as nation states compete for the business of individuals. And it starts to become a more like customer-like relationship. Again, I think this is going to take a long time. But again, these are the first innings of this. I think there's going to be many, many, many more cases, right? We had the example with the IRS. They set a deadline by the 31st, and they said, like, look, you have to report. And I was like scrambling to get compliant and all this stuff, but they set a deadline by December 31st. You have to, file your taxes a certain way, because if not, you're not going to be able to do it. 2 days later, they reversed that and they said, you know what? Actually, you have until December 31st of 2026 in order to do this. But imagine all the people that sent all their all their balances, all their consolidated UTXOs, thinking that the deadline was December 31st, right? So I think that this is going to continue. I think the current taxation system is based on the fact that I think governments always thought they were going to have a complete control over money. And I think that they always thought they were going to have the ability to censor money, control money, issue money. But in a world where that's not the case, I think the social dynamics change. I think the conversation changes. The balance of power changes as well. So anyways, maybe I'm naive, but just an observation. Max, I want to get your thoughts, and then we'll talk to Opti.
I mean, life always finds a way. So if governments will definitely compete for people, governments will definitely compete, and countries will compete for smart people. And it's getting easier and easier, at least in most of the countries out there, to change, to relocate. I mean, as you mentioned, we can work remotely, and you can work from any part of the world, and you can just choose and pick the country or the location that you prefer, whether it's the weather, whether it's economy, taxes, social things, whatever. So I think it's not theory actually anymore. Because like in Europe, for example, European Union, you can change location pretty much easily, and you can become a tax resident. Not that easy as changing a location, but you can actually become a tax resident. If you're a European Union citizen, you can become a tax resident of any European Union state, and they still have a difference in terms of taxing capital gains and other stuff. So you can pretty much, in modern world, you can pretty much relocate easily to any part of the world, just based on your preference, whatever you're looking for. And it's not theory anymore; it's actually real life, and people are moving.
100%. It's definitely not theory. People are moving. The internet has just facilitated this. You can just jump on a plane. Again, Katie the Russian built an entire business. Plan B passport, right? So yes, I think people. the trend, I think, is going to accelerate where people are going to shop for jurisdictions that they're most favorable to them. I think that trend is inevitable. And I think that if you're a country, and then we saw this in the United States, like with the pandemic, certain states were pretty bad towards businesses, and they became pretty bad in terms of taxes as well. And what you saw is a massive exodus from New York and California, and you saw a lot of people move to Texas and Florida, right? So you saw that like kind of like on a microscopic scale. I think 20 years ago, it was much harder to do that, right? You couldn't just bring your entire business. You couldn't just take your laptop, put it in a car and say, hey, you know what? We're leaving, right? With Bitcoin, and with the fact that the internet is a thing, I would say a lot of people can just pack up, get in a car, get on an airplane, say, peace out, I'm leaving, moving to a more favorable jurisdiction. And I think that trend is going to continue. And I think these types of cases are going to continue as well as governments get desperate, right? And I think they're going to want to continue setting examples and saying, hey, you know what? Like, it doesn't matter that you left for some, you still owe us taxes, right? So anyways, Opti, what's your take on this? And then we're going to move on to the culture, talk to Max about Debifi.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main signal here is when you kind of bring in Roger Ver here. Of course, he's like a despised figure in the Bitcoin community, but what you're seeing is the capital controls. And Nico, you just said it. Like, when these nation states, when the people in power start to get scared, obviously they're going to clamp down on capital, and we're seeing that play out. And remember, Roger Ver renounced his citizenship, paid his taxes, and left. And yet 10 years later, they still came after him. And now this guy is a very similar thing. And so you're seeing that they are actively coming after Bitcoin and Bitcoiners because they understand the games that we understand. Like, if Bitcoin does get out of the gate and more people start to hold it, then the whole facade starts to crumble and more people start to wake up and realize, like, wait, why am I a tax cattle? What is really going on here? Like, what is the purpose of this fiat money versus, besides just stealing my wealth? Like, this is why, Nico, I'm going further than you always go. It's like the main goal of Bitcoin is to end the Fed. I think the main goal of Bitcoin is to end all central banks and to end usury in general. And that's the main problem going here. Like, and I am on YouTube here, but the parasites out there are scared because we are waking up to the fact that they can no longer suck our blood. And this is why you're seeing all this stuff play out. And so I think this is only going to continue as Bitcoin starts to get proliferated around the globe. And we are already seeing jurisdictions that are embracing Bitcoin in the last couple of weeks. Like, the Czech Republic, it just came out very, very, I would say, adamantly and saying that, look, there's no capital gains tax on your Bitcoin if you hold it for X amount of years. And this is why I'm hoping that in the very short term, we start to see Bitcoin kind of classified as money. Like you said, why are we having to pay capital gains tax on Bitcoin? You don't pay a capital gains tax when you move from dollars to pesos or dollars to whatever, moose shekels. Like, why are we doing all this? And it's really capital controls. They're afraid of classifying Bitcoin as money because if the money is able to flow freely around the globe, then the scam of fiat currencies are exposed and the whole house of cards breaks. And so are we surprised? No, I think this is only going to continue. And this is a bunch of precedent being set right now. And it's absolutely terrifying that, they're throwing Bitcoiners in cages and stuff. And I think this fight is going to continue not only in 2025, but probably all the way into the 2030s. So yeah, man,
absolutely,
lives are getting crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look into alternative passports, look into this, take the tax planning seriously, guys. Obviously, we follow the law, the law in your jurisdiction. You have to look at it, whatever the capital gains, you don't want to get in trouble. Right. So, and we recommend that. But at the same time, legally, there's a legal process where you can take advantage of shopping around, looking for more favorable tax jurisdictions to benefit your financial planning. You could totally do this. This is 100% legal. You have the ability to do that as an individual, but you have to do it right. You have to do it by the book. Just not reporting your taxes in general is a terrible idea. I do not recommend that at all. But at the same time, I think more and more people are going to realize that, hey, what's the point of me living here if I can find a more favorable tax situation over here, But again, you have to do it legally. We're not tax advisors. We're not lawyers. So you guys got to do your own research. But I thought it was an interesting article to cover during the news today. Anyways, guys, we're going to hit the culture. We're going to talk to Max Kai about the Baltic Honey Badger Conference, about Debifi, about HODL, about all these things. So we'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com.
All right, everybody. I do want to give a very, very special shout out to our sponsor, BitBlockBoom. It's been one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year, April 3rd through the 6th in Dallas, Texas. You guys definitely don't want to miss this. It's one of the best Bitcoin conferences. If you're trying to get a job in the industry, if you're trying to meet your favorite Bitcoiners, this is one of the conferences to go to. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew is going to be there. Nico, Opti, Dante, Rustin, Jacob, Sophie, everyone. It's going to be a great time. Guys, definitely don't want to miss it. Hope to see you guys in Dallas, Texas. They have barbecues. They have just so many. It's just fun. It's just a great event. Definitely want to see you guys there. It's April 3rd through the 6th of this year. Get your tickets quickly. The prices do go up in exactly 11 hours. And you can use promo code BBB21 to get $100 off of your ticket. All right, I want to take advantage of the fact that we got Max Kai in the house, and we're going to talk about all the things that Max has been working on lately. Opti.
Yeah. So, Max, of course, thank you for coming on. Well, first, maybe I'll do this at the end. I do kind of want to get your 2015 take from, 2015 Bitcoiner take and where we're getting, but let's talk about Debifi first. Obviously, we talked about this before the show, and for people that don't know, you did help build HODL, but now you're building Debifi. So what's Debifi and who's it for? And I'll pull up your website here. So give us, your elevator pitch for the people out there, who it or what it is and why people need it. I know before the show you're like, I'm the worst marketer here, but this is your chance, bro. A couple minutes, talk about what you're building and who's it for. Really, that's I think the most interesting aspect of this.
I love talking about Bitcoin, hate talking about products, but nevertheless. Because Bitcoin is perfect, products unfortunately are not sometimes, but we're striving for the perfection. Now Debifi is a global lending platform. We are basically bridging the gap between institutional lenders on one side and borrowers, Bitcoin companies that has treasuries. So those who don't want to sell Bitcoin and they want to borrow against that, it's possible to do it through Debifi. It's basically like an eBay for Bitcoin loans. So we're not acting as a middleman. You communicate as a borrower or as a lender, you communicate directly with your counterparty, and we provide you with a safe technical environment to conclude all the lending activities that you want to conclude. And we work with, we prefer building our products, HODL and Debifi, with the core principles of Bitcoin in mind, meaning it should be peer-to-peer, it should be non-custodial, and it should be Bitcoin only. So it's peer-to-peer because, again, as I said, lenders are talking and engaging in contracts directly with the borrowers. It's non-custodial because all the collaterals are stored in multisig, in a unique multisig on a public Bitcoin blockchain. So it's fully transparent, can be verified real time. You as a borrower hold one key, lender will hold another key, Debifi, and hold the third key, and there's a fourth key holder, which in our case is AnchorWatch. We'll have more. So the multisig works with 3 out of 4. There's no replication, and there's no opportunity for us single-handedly move your Bitcoin to any type of other addresses. And we only work with Bitcoin. I mean, we only support Bitcoin as a collateral. We only build infrastructure for Bitcoin. So that's basically it. We are bringing TradeFi companies with liquidity that doesn't have any experience in building Bitcoin tech. But they have a lot of liquidity. We are connecting them with the borrowers, with Bitcoin borrowers across the globe. So that's the initial idea. I mean, do not sell, borrow against your Bitcoin. In most of the countries, you will avoid capital gain tax, and you will still keep holding your Bitcoin, and you will have one of the keys, and that will allow you probably to make more money rather than selling this and now. So yeah, that's the idea of Debifi.
Yeah, and I one question to clarify, because I think you said it before the show, before we went live. You, as a lender, are lending to like bigger institutions. This isn't just
No. You're as a lender, you are institution as a lender. So lenders only institutions. I mean, you can only be corporate entity to lend out money on Debifi, but you can lend out to private individuals and to corporate entities. So there's no limit who can borrow against their Bitcoin.
Got it. And our audience is mainly in the U.S., so clarifying here, can U.S. investors or lenders use this product?
Lenders, we're in talks with multiple U.S. lenders at the moment. I mean, it's still it's highly scalable, but we still need to take some baby steps since we launched just last year. So we're in talks with some of the U.S. lenders, and there's a huge interest from large liquidity providers. Hopefully, in Q1, we will announce some USD-based lenders. At the moment, we have stable coins and some fiat as well available, but no particular USD-focused lender. Individuals and companies, we're also in talks, and some of them are using Debifi to borrow against their Bitcoin. So, I mean, we are building Debifi to be available globally for everyone.
Love it. Okay. I do kind of want to talk about just Bitcoin lending in general, because I know it does kind of seem like the new hot topic, one of the more interesting things playing out in Bitcoin. And there is, obviously some pushback from Bitcoiners of like, well, why am I going to lend out my Bitcoin when I should just hodl this Bitcoin? So is Bitcoin lending obviously going to be the future for Bitcoiners? Or, what's your thoughts on maybe the risk and where the trajectory of Bitcoin's going with Bitcoin lending? Obviously, I like the meme that you said of live off your Bitcoin. Don't necessarily just sell your Bitcoin, like live off of it. And that's what the Bitcoin lending is about. So what's your thoughts on this pushback from like hodlers versus the Bitcoin lending space?
Yeah. So first of all, I need to make one correction. It's you're not lending out your Bitcoin on Debifi. We don't support that. I mean, I think the generated yield on top of your Bitcoin is just retarded. I mean, you want to generate yield. You buy Bitcoin. You buy a hardware wallet. You put your Bitcoin in a hardware wallet. You forget it for 4 years. Voila! In 4 years, your yield is generated. I mean, Bitcoin is like self-generating yield, asset, money, whatever you claim it to be, whatever you prefer it to call. So we are in the business of borrowing against your Bitcoin. We want to offer services, and we want to provide services to Bitcoiners to live off their Bitcoin by not selling the Bitcoin, because that's the ultimate goal. I mean, when the price is $500,000, as Nico envisioned boldly at the beginning of the live stream, I mean, many people will consider, you know what, I don't want to sell it, because I've been seeing how this thing taking off against all other assets for the past 4 years, 5 years, whatever, 2 years, 1 year maybe. And I see what's happening with the economy. Bitcoin is the ultimate hedge against all the weird stuff happening and all the mismanagement things that are happening with the traditional fiat system. And what I can do with that, I can borrow against that. And again, as I mentioned, in multiple countries across the globe, borrowing against your Bitcoin is a non-taxable event, while selling the Bitcoin is actually a taxable event. So this is what we want to offer. That's the service we're striving to build. But again, we don't want to build it in a custodial way, because as we saw for the past couple years, BlockFi, Celsius, FTX, Voyager, you name it. I mean, as soon as you're starting using the custodial services, you're probably going to get hurt at some point. So we want you to learn. I think a lot of learning's been done hard way. We want you to avoid that.
Yeah, love it. And then speaking of learning, trolling. I am a 65 IQ Bitcoiner here. So, borrowing against my Bitcoin seems kind of difficult. How difficult is this? And, break it down in 5th grade language here for people.
It's not difficult if you cracked out Bitcoin. I mean, in a good way. If you do understand how to store your keys, and as we talk at the beginning of the live stream, the services are improving. I would say that Debifi is striving to create the ultimate user experience. We still have some of the things to improve, actually a lot of things to improve, but it's getting there. And I think if you have Bitcoin, if you know how to use it, if you know how to self-custody this thing, you're probably going to get familiar with a lot of non-custodial services, such as Debifi, for example. So yeah, it's not hard. It's pretty much, I would say it's pretty much user-friendly, and it will be even more user-friendly in next couple of months. We have a lot of plans and a lot of interesting feature to announce.
Max, and I have a question, because you're also known for the Baltic Honey Badger Conference, which is a legendary conference update. If you could pull that up, I want to talk about that, because again, that's one of the most famous conferences, Bitcoin conferences in Europe. And you were saying something in the beginning of the show about this next one potentially being, I don't know if I can say that live, but
we don't know whether there will be a next one, but if there will be, it's probably will be the last one. So we haven't yet decided. So we put 2025, but still, we're still thinking. Nevertheless, the reason is that we are not conference organizers. We just back in the days in 2017, we started Baltic Honey Badger because we were fed up with all the ICO blockchain bullshit happening across the globe at the conference level, and we decided we're gonna do the Bitcoin only thing. And we did it in Riga, which is like, for most of the people, it's like a middle of nowhere. It's a lot of people can't even say where it is. So we did it in Riga. We were very lucky with having, at our first conference, at the first Baltic Honey Badger in 2017, we had Andreas Antonopoulos as a speaker.
Wow, legend.
And he's a legend. I mean, he delivered a great speech on particularly at the Baltic Honey Badger. If you have an opportunity, go on YouTube, check it out. It's one of my favorite talks about Bitcoin, and particularly about state and government control. It was amazing. We had Adam back, we had Peter Todd, we had Giacomo Zucco, and that was the first conference there. We had Elizabeth Stark as well. And it was November, very cold, very chilly, in the basement in Riga, and it was 300 people, something like that. And we were lucky, and we understood that Bitcoin only conferences is a thing. We repeated that in 2018. Then in 2019, a lot of conference started to mimic or to do the same, being Bitcoin only conferences. And eventually, we just continue doing this. But now we have a lot of things on our plate, and it's just taking too much time, because again, we are not conference organizers. We're software builders, and we prefer to do that. That's our core business.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing that you're known for, Max, and I want to talk about that, is hodl. So what is hodl? I'm sure a lot of people in the audience have heard about it. Could you give a quick breakdown?
It's a peer-to-peer trading and lending platform, like for like retail sector or retail market. So it's a platform where you can non-custodially buy and sell Bitcoin across the globe, and you can also borrow or lend out stable coins if you have them, also across the globe. So hodl mostly focused on emerging markets. It's not available in US, unfortunately or fortunately. I mean, you had a rough 4 years, guys. So
Yeah.
we were actually, some of our competitors were like, we are in US, and we said like, yeah, great. I don't know what to do, what to say, congratulate or say my condolences to you. But eventually, we survived with our strategy, focusing on emerging markets. And we actually have a significant presence in Latin America, Southeast Asia. We are very much interested in moving into Africa, and we want to build hodl and tools for buying, selling, trading, lending and borrowing for emerging markets. So that's our core markets, and we want to move in that direction. And we've been doing this for the past 6 years, I think. So hodl is actually, we've been pioneers in a lending space. We've been pioneers in peer-to-peer lending. So basically, anyone can become a lender, and anyone can borrow against that. So when you're borrowing on hodl outside of US, not being a US resident, so I need to make that reference. You are actually borrowing from, could be borrowing from private individuals, could be borrowing from corporates. It's anonymous, and it's basically, again, we're sticking with the core principles of Bitcoin: peer-to-peer, non-custodial, no middleman, and Bitcoin only.
Amazing. Well, Max, it was.
Wait, Nico. Wait. Before we go, our audience, I'm speculating here, but our audience is a lot of newer Bitcoiners, and we have Max here, who's a 2015 Bitcoiner. So I would like, if you could, we'll go back to you talking about Bitcoin and not, Debifi, since that's not what you like to do. I would like for you, as a, again, 2015 Bitcoiner, to maybe impart some wisdom on the newer Bitcoiners here. Maybe what do you see coming down the pipeline? Like, what are you most excited about in Bitcoin, considering you've been in it for 10 years at this point?
I mean, I think the most important thing over the course of all my years in Bitcoin, stick with Bitcoin, first of all, Bitcoin only. And that's like ultimate advice to anyone. Learn about self-custody and do self-custody always. And if you need to use services, whether it's trading or borrowing, lending, avoid custodial services at all costs. Use non-custodial services. And I'm a big believer and a big fan of multisig. And if you can use multisig within these services, that's the best choice out there. It's not necessary, it has to be like Debifi or something else. There's a bunch of them. But I mean, stick with Bitcoin, do the self-custody properly, and do not generate yield. Do not fall for scams of generating yield on top of Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is yield-generating asset, and if you will store it properly, if you cherish your Bitcoin, it will do good for you.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Anyways, I do want to thank Max for joining us on the show today. Really, really appreciate it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's show for January 8th, 2024. I'm your host, Nico. Of course, my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields, and our special guest today, Max Kai, CEO of Debifi. We appreciate you all. If you guys enjoyed the show, smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.